Hello, everybody. Stop imitating everything I do. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Always Almost There, Day After Show Live. We are here today, coming to you live from the streets of Toronto, on location for Goose's. We're ready for Goose's second Canadian show. But I'm very excited to be joined today by my father, Rob. Hi, Rob.
Hi, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for being on the pod today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. It's not, this is your first show in a while. So it was exciting to have you on.
My last show, I guess, was Westville.
Yeah.
I got to see them 9 times last year, although I did forget by the end of the year that I had seen them 9 times. Yeah. So that kind of tracks.
But big deal last night, of course, for both of us, as you know, I've been talking about for the last several months since they announced these shows. Goose is playing in Toronto. It happened last night. It's happening again tonight. And I just got to say it was amazing. Aside from the fact that getting to sleep in my own bed after a show was phenomenal, the place was packed last night. Everybody was so excited. Walking out of the venue last night, people were buzzing. I had multiple people tell me, they went in, not 100% sold. They walked out absolutely sold on Goose. So while I do, obviously, because I'm me, I have some criticisms about the show. I think overall it was amazing, and they played a really excellent show for a crowd that I think they knew hadn't seen them as much as, say, the crowd that they just had in Milwaukee. But what are your kind of top level thoughts on the show? Kind of what I just said.
Yeah, for sure. Great energy throughout. Very dancey. I thought there was it was a very uppity show, even though there were some spots where they went dissonant. So that was really great. I thought the energy of the crowd was amazing. I think that one of my favorite things about seeing Goose and other bands like them is when the energy of the crowd starts to build up. And there were a couple spots there. I don't think there were any feverish peaks from the crowd in that way, but there was a lot of times where the crowd was cheering in the right places. And you could feel the energy building from the band, which was really cool.
Yeah. No, 100%. History, for those who don't know, it's a pretty cool venue, kind of in the middle of nowhere out in the east end of Toronto. People kept asking me, like, oh, what's good near the venue? And nothing really. But it's a great venue. The sound in there is amazing if you're down on the floor.
And Drake is one of the owners of the club, so yes. he made it. This is, I think, my 4th or 5th show at History. And when you're dead on, the sound is great. I find it's a strange setup. There's a balcony up top that, instead of just being straight across, kind of has this weird angle. So there's some weird sightlines in there. And the other thing is the floor is flat. So it would be great if there was a slight incline to make it a little bit easier to see from further back. But then there's a bar basically a bar level in behind the soundboard. And I found last night, when it got a little bit softer, and we'll get to it in the first set, Your Ocean was kind of the first spot for that. You could hear people talking, and it gets really loud. So that would be my biggest criticism of History, is having that one spot that is there that is more like a bar than it is a music venue, leads to people talking and being really loud. But other than that, excellent.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into the show here. Let's start off with the beginning of the first set. We get, of course, our 3-pack of openers. Yeti, Mr. Action, Elizabeth. Of course, Yeti. A lot of us expected this to happen, to open the show. Canadian borderline and all. Got a nice cheer from the crowd. Nice extended little funk fest in here. Nothing crazy, but 2-guitar funk Yeti. And again, the crowd was into it immediately. Mr. Action, again, great early first set song. Good energy as well. And Elizabeth is when things start to open up. This one goes a little bit longer than we see from some of these first set versions. This one hits around 15 minutes. And it's really, really amazing. I mean, the jam starts off in kind of an atypical way. You get less of that like Chugel kind of style of jamming that they normally do within Liz, and Cotter kind of slows it down, and it gets a little spacier, and then they kind of come together and just really amazing sustained peak to kind of give our first dose of jamming, but again, just easing people in there. But what did you think of the first 3?
I think you nailed it. I mean, you had been saying to me all week they're going to open the Toronto show with Yeti, and I was sitting with standing next to a buddy of mine who hasn't seen Goose before, and I said, "Oh, they're going to open with Yeti," and then they started, and he goes, "What song is this?" I said, "It's Yeti." He goes, "Oh my God, how'd you know?" And I said, "Well, Ryan basically told me."
It's predictable.
But as you described, pretty straightforward. Yeti and Mr. Action and Elizabeth, I really fell in love with it when we saw them at the Fox in Atlanta, and I thought, that time I saw it, I'm like, I can see Elizabeth all the time. I think they do an amazing job with it, and it's a great high energy tune. Love it. So
absolutely,
I agree with you on that.
All right, well, so we get the 3-pack of openers. We warm up. Cool down, Your Ocean, you mentioned. I thought this was kind of odd placement for this song. I think without it, I don't think this set suffers. Now, Your Ocean is great, and I think it served to, again, introduce the crowd who may not be as familiar with Goose songs to, like, here's a ballad. So interesting placement, but I mean, I love Your Ocean, so, nothing bad to say about it.
I'm with you.
Okay.
Nothing to add.
And then we go right off the deep end with Earthling or Alien. Some say it was due, me. Some say it wasn't, Neil. And it was due. And they played it for just, I think it was like 6 seconds short of hitting 20 minutes. This jam is absolutely incredible. You kind of have this minimalist funk for a while, and then they drift off into this psychedelic space, reverb clav, Rick just going ham on like clouds of delay and loops and stuff. Peter coming in with that Shine On You Crazy Diamond tease on the clav, and then Rick kind of emerges from the soup with this very sharp envelope filter work as they kind of get into this like 2-chord jam towards the end. But this is one of my favorite kind of improvisational ideas that they've explored on this tour so far. And obviously there was so much in Milwaukee, but I love the amount of sonic landscape that is created just with the reverb clav. And so, yeah, loved what they were doing here, and the way that Cotter just kind of glides through the jam. He was on fire last night.
Well, and one of the things you were worried about coming into this, or not worried is maybe the wrong word, but one of the comments you had made was Milwaukee, because of it was in Milwaukee and they had the zhuzh going for Milwaukee. You would not use that word.
No,
but, I'm sure everybody on here understands what I mean. Whether that would carry over into Toronto, and this Earthling put that worry to rest.
Yes. Yeah. No, amazing. And just happy to see, big jam in the first set here. Because, at this point, obviously it's like, we're warmed up, we're ready. Give us something here. And
so
then
let's talk before we go there. Can we talk about Getty for a second?
And
New Light
yes.
Rick? So when we were watching over the weekend, it was, even on TV, it was incredible to watch. I don't know, what do you call it? Almost like the curtain, right? And the use of the lights that way. It's stunning in person. It's incredible. And the use of the lights even in behind it, really incredible. And so often when I go to shows, I close my eyes and I'm listening to the music. And, I was seeing Fish a couple of weeks ago and my eyes were closed like for most of the show. And here I was trying to do the same thing. But the lights kept drawing me back.
Mm-hmm.
It's really incredible what Getty's doing.
Yeah, no, the rig is amazing. And again, just in person, it's a completely different thing. And, the way that he has the curtain kind of coming from the top and the bottom of the stage. And so there will be times during a jam where like you can't see the band for a second, and then it's kind of like flickering back and forth. And it was really cool.
Yeah.
So Earthling or Alien kind of fades out into The Way It Is. The crowd goes nuts for this one. First cover of the night, obviously familiar to people, again, who may not be super familiar with Goose. So this one was great, and always such a great cover to see. And then,
before that,
your thoughts.
Well, I thought it was great The Way It Is. I mean, when it came out originally, it was a favorite back then. So totally awesome. And Ryan turns to me and he's looking at his watch. It's like, I assume this will end it. That's a pretty quick set.
Close to 70 minutes already. I think we were 70 minutes into the set already. And I also thought at the time, I thought it was an 11 o'clock hard curfew.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, this will end the set. And then The Way It Is ends. They don't walk off stage, and they bring on Bahamas, aka Afi Jervinen. Sorry if I butchered the pronunciation. For Trick to Happy. I like this a lot. I had not personally heard of Bahamas before. As we all know, I live in a very sheltered bubble of the bands that I like, and I don't listen to other music. But I really enjoyed this. I thought the band sounded great. You know, I love sit-ins can be kind of hit or miss. And I thought this was a really good one. I honestly could see this sticking around as a cover that Goose will play on their own. Right. You know, I think Rick would sound good singing it, and it's a great song.
Well, I've got a couple comments on that. Number one, he was incredible, shredding on guitar, and you know, Rick, they were dialing in with each other, and I thought that was amazing, and his vocals were incredible.
Yeah.
So that was huge. And the second thing is, you know, Rick was turned and looking at him and clearly having so much fun.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's contagious when they, you know, when they're having fun, obviously we all feed off of that. So I thought that was pretty great.
Yeah. And Peter sharing that anecdote after, you know, he said like Bahama's music has like gotten him through some hard times and some good times. And it's like, you know, go listen to the records. And I feel like he doesn't give that kind of personal touch about every sit-in they have. So that was cool to hear, you know, that at least coming to Toronto and they get the opportunity to play with a musician like that. You know, he's from Barrie, which is just north of Toronto. But yeah, very cool. And then the set closes with Tumble. You know, it started there. So Trick to Happy Ends. I'm like, okay, like got to be a short one. Like, I don't know what, but like, it's got to be a short one. And we get Tumble. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess short Tumble. And then no, 20-minute Tumble. So we have like 100-minute long first set here. And I think it was around here where I figured out, I think I was talking to someone who was like, oh, it's not a hard curfew. So that was good information for my stress levels on their timing. But this Tumble is amazing. Trevor is the clear MVP of this jam. Yeah. You know, nothing too crazy improv wise, but like the energy is up. You know, Rick is doing that thing where he just latches onto a riff and just builds off of it and around it for several minutes. Trevor was actually the one that kind of first started playing that descending riff that they hit on. But wow, it was a great Tumble and great way to send us into set break. What do you think, Dad?
I thought it was amazing. Just even just listening to it again, I absolutely agree. Trevor was the all-star of that one. And you know, that's the one where they found some dissonant.
Yeah.
Oh, I turned to Ryan. I said, I don't really remember the dissonant from last night. And then he goes, it's coming. And like 2 seconds later, we're listening to it and it was there. But it was like, you know, classic tension and then release and then coming back to the motif that they had created. So I always love hearing Tumble. So it was great.
Yeah.
So have you done any research to see 100-minute sets, first sets? How close is that to the longest?
We haven't crunched the numbers based on first sets, but I believe obviously our stats man, friend of the pod, Adam, when he was entering the timings for last night's show, I believe last night's first set was the 20th longest single set, but that also includes single set festival performances.
Okay.
So I definitely want to find out if this is the longest first set they've ever played. I think it might be, but we will get back to you on that once we properly crunch those numbers. Set break, you know, vibes were still high. Went and, you know, saw some friends walking around, promoted, you know, the after show I was playing last night. But there was just a lot of general excitement. Again, one thing I keep coming back to about last night's show is there are a lot of people who have seen Goose, you know, 0, 1, or 2 times. You know, people that, you know, living in Toronto, really the only two like quote unquote local shows that there have been in the past number of years is there was the Art Park show in 2022, which is just near Buffalo. So that's 2 hours from here, and CMAC last year, which was 3 hours from here. So, you know, there were some people who made the trek there and some people who didn't. You know, obviously there were a good amount of people who traveled in for these shows, which was awesome to see, you know, the people want to come up on a Monday and a Tuesday to see Goose here. But yeah, it was just so much excitement. People being like, man, like I knew Goose was good, but it's like so good in person. And, you know, obviously we all know this. And so just, it's a treat to see people getting sold and people having such a great time. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Separate?
Same thing. I had a conversation with a few people who actually, you know, many people who I know who went last night didn't even know any Goose songs. So it's tough to go into a show when you don't know any of the songs. So, friend of the Board and Storm family, not the pod, Julia, she turned to me and she goes, I prefer their covers. And I'm like, yeah, because you know them. However, she danced with me like crazy through the pancakes. So, you know, the energy of these guys and the energy of a full room and the excitement of them coming to town will get even those who don't know the music and just appreciate good jam bands and good music. And I think that's what I got in talking to some of the people I saw at Set Break.
There we go. Well, let's dive into set 2 here. We start off with a pretty sizable stack of pancakes here. This is just Cotter continuing his MVP run. Is it that funny?
Yes, it is to me. It's something I would say.
Okay,
say, you're ridiculous.
How we talk about
whatever.
Pancakes jam.
Okay.
Anyway, this is an incredible pancakes. You know, I would say not again, just like the tumble, like not the deepest improvisationally. Like I think end of year, this is definitely still going to be on my playlist if I had to guess. But I don't think it'll be super high up. But it's a really amazing, just like aggressive jam for the first large chunk. You know, Cotter again just immediately starts pushing into, I think I described it in my review as like punishing on the toms and really crushing it. Rick just being super aggressive and everybody just really getting in, you know, kind of this huge sound for the first part of the jam. And then, you know, they hit this amazing peak and then it kind of dies out. And I thought, you know, we thought they were segueing into something. Then they, you know, come out into this new kind of more blissy space for the last few minutes before kind of, you know, fading out. But I like this jam a lot. And again, just like getting a big 24-minute jam to open the second set. Yeah.
And listen, notwithstanding what we're going to talk about of the second half of the set, it just felt it was patient. There was no rush to get through anything, and all the songs up until here. So yeah, the pancakes was excellent.
Yeah. And then next up, we have A Western Sun into Interlude 2. My second favorite interlude after 3. I like this combination here. I will say, like, you know, Western Sun obviously gets put in the cool down slot here after the pancakes. And so it could jam, it could not jam. And so I think it being in this slot, like, obviously it would have been nice for the Western Sun to be 20 minutes long. But I think it served really well as kind of a bridge to the next part of the set, which obviously didn't pan out the way that, you know, it could have. But I think, no, but I think if you remove the Wisteria from this set and you have pancakes, Western Sun, interlude, All I Need, slow ready, it's a very different situation. If you have a 19-minute All I Need here instead of 11 minutes, and you know they keep going in that. But Western Sun interlude 2 is great, and I love the use of interlude 2 to go into something other than Jive 1. You know, I think that's underutilized for sure, and I love that they're doing that.
Well, it was fun to be standing next to you as the Western Sun was winding down, and Ryan's like sitting here, please jam it, please jam it. And then at first he's like, oh, and then it's like, wait
there's a bit of a pause,
wait, they are. So that was good. I mean, it's you know, Western Sun, without really knowing, I didn't know where they transferred or switched from a Western Sun to interlude 2, so I had Ryan helping me with that one.
That's what I'm here for.
But they dropped into All I Need, which was amazing.
Oh my god, what like. Is this the greatest 11-minute jam Goose has ever played? It could be. I thought it was at least 15. Like when they started going into Wisteria, I was like, oh, like, okay, I get ripcord, but like, you know, there's still solid jam. Then I looked, I was like, that was 11 minutes. Like what they covered in those 11 minutes was nothing short of spectacular.
Yeah.
I mean, just like that Cotter, just with that shuffling beat, and just like mean energy that they were dialing into there.
Yeah.
You know, we're seeing that adventurous spirit that we saw in Milwaukee so much. It's still there. It didn't manifest itself in, you know, quite as large of a scale last night, at least in this instance. But wow, it was amazing. And then, you know, Peter getting on guitar for the last minute or so, like, again, just 2-guitar Goose. And I think Rick, in the last 2 minutes of this jam, he taps into like almost exactly the tone of the San Francisco Wisteria and what he's playing. You know, if you go back and listen to his riffs and then go and listen to the San Francisco Wisteria, there's a lot of similarity in the style there. And, you know, that's one of the greatest jams I've ever played. And it's a spectacular piece of music. So I really wish they had continued to explore this All I Need instead of going into Wisteria, especially because the Wisteria was only 8 minutes long, which, you know, that shouldn't be allowed, personally, I think. But
I agree.
Yeah, this All I Need was spectacular.
I don't think I've ever listened to the San Francisco.
You have.
Oh.
But is that
was it? I was going to make a comment on that, but I thought the All I Need was amazing, and I was convinced when we were there last night, and I said it to Ryan, and I made him play it right now, and I of course was wrong. I was convinced that it was like a CCP for Rick, that he kind of hit it, and it's like, oh, why don't we just play that? But obviously,
it was an intentional segue. We've not seen a written set list from last night yet, so we don't know what the plan was for this set. Thanks. No bias here. My mother loves this pod format. Crazy that your husband and son being on a podcast together is something
we've got chemistry. I think we should do this more often.
I wonder why we have chemistry.
So, well, I loved how they. I mean, even though it went from there and dropped after the Wisteria, dropped into the Pancakes ending, which brought the energy back up, but it's just high energy.
Yeah. And again, people who aren't as familiar with the band, like people were loving this, and that's also really important. Like obviously, Neil and I talk about it on this podcast sometimes, like we are not necessarily the target demographic, fans like us. No, like we are, obviously, we who hyper analyze every single note that they play. So it's important that while this may not have been the greatest second half of a second set the band has ever played, people were loving it. And people had a great time, when they came back into Pancakes, as you just said, amazing, Slow Ready, great way to close the second set. And then for the encore,
well, hang on, Slow Ready. Peter went to the arpeggiator.
We made a mistake with programming it or something like that. There was like
a pause for a moment.
Yeah.
It was funny.
Yes. No, I agree, Matt Ross, correct about the fan base thing and not being the target demographic, but there is never a reason to play an 8-minute Wisteria. You are correct. And for the encore, if Neil were here, he would probably burst out laughing right now, because he did last night. He had said during, like, when Wisteria went back into Pancakes, he said like, if they encore with a 9-minute Thatch, I'm gonna die of laughter. And then they did. That's an interesting placement. I think we knew Thatch was coming either last night or tonight. I thought it was going to be like a big jammer last night. And I think in that slot, it feels like a waste of the song to me, especially, this tour is only 8 shows. Like, I think at this point they wanted to get it played so then they could play it again in Grand Rapids. I think, I don't know if songs played tomorrow they're going to bring back as fast. But I understand, wanting to play it, but it's unfortunate that it was, a 9-minute version as opposed to a 20-minute version.
Well, listen,
but it's still Thatch, and it ripped.
Well, every disappointment is because your expectations are high, and you want every Thatch to be a rager for 25 minutes.
Sure.
Well, you really want every song to be that, don't you?
Not every song, but getting several of those in every show would be great.
Well, we got 3 last night, so lots to be happy about.
Yeah. So. But yeah, it was a great ending to the show. We all went home happy. Had a great late night last night. So shout out to Animal again, and everyone who came out to the Linsmore Tavern. We had a great time. And yeah, we're back for night 2 pretty soon. People are acclimated. People are ready. We're gonna get hot tea. That's all I know. They've kind of emptied the tank on the huge jam vehicles. So I think tonight is where we start to see things pop back up that were played in Milwaukee, like Thursday for sure, Friday potentially 1 or 2. But yeah, I think the no repeats ends here. But I'm really excited, to see Goose now and see what's gonna happen tonight.
Me too. I got nothing else to add.
All right. Well, thank you for being on the pod today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you everybody for tuning in. Oh yeah, you'll be back. Thank you everybody for tuning into this episode of Always Almost There. We will be back tomorrow afternoon at 3:30 to recap tonight's show in Toronto ahead of 3 nights in Grand Rapids this weekend. It's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to another 3-night run, but it's going to be great. Also, of course, Jam of the Year voting is still happening during tour. Links are posted on Blue Sky and Instagram stories every day. Don't forget to get involved. I know Nate Bordash was waiting. Long live Miami Cakes. It's up today. It's against the Greek Drip. I don't know if it has a chance, but we love the campaigning. Don't forget to get involved because the bracket is awesome. But anyway, everybody enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Have a fantastic show tonight, whether you're on the couch or in person. We will see you tomorrow afternoon.